On this episode of China Uncensored, another North Korean assassination plot? LOL. Shanghai becomes a ghost town. The ghosts are just there for the shopping. And finally, does trade trump human rights? I know just the guy to ask. This is China Uncensored. Hi, welcome to China Uncensored. I'm your host, Chris Chappell. In our top story, Chinese authorities apparently broke up a North Korean assassination plot. According to South Korean media sources, several North Korean agents were apprehended by Chinese police in Beijing. They were allegedly part of a plot to assassinate Kim Jong-un's 22-year-old nephew, Kim Han-sol. North Korean Kim Jong-un had apparently ordered his bounty hunters to bring him Han-sol and a cookie. Sadly, they weren't able to bring him back that cookie either. Kim Han-sol is the son of Kim Jong-un's half-brother, Kim Jong-nam, who was assassinated in Malaysia earlier this year by two women, one of whom was wearing a shirt that said LOL. Beijing authorities were tipped off this time because one of the North Korean agents was wearing a similar shirt. The Chinese regime has been sheltering Kim Jong-un's half-brother's family, including Han-sol, for years. Some people believed it was because they wanted them to replace Kim Jong-un someday. You see, Kim Jong-nam was a market reform type communist, whereas Kim Jong-un is more of a destabilize all of Asia type communist. But not everyone in China is completely opposed to Kim's North Korean regime. Apparently, one of China's biggest state-owned investment firms may have links to a cargo ship that was doing illegal trading between China and North Korea. On the bright side, though, it seems like the Chinese regime is repairing relations with the other member of the Korean peninsula, South Korea. Earlier this year, South Korea installed THAAD, a U.S.-made missile defense system. The Chinese regime flipped out. What's the problem with a missile defense system protecting South Korea from a North Korean nuclear strike? Well, it could also theoretically be used someday against China. The Chinese regime encouraged people to boycott South Korean products. They even shut down some Korean businesses operating inside China, like this latte store in Jiangsu province that suddenly had fire safety issues. But that still didn't stop South Korea from installing the missile defense system. So eventually, the Chinese regime kind of backed down, and now they're agreeing to normalize relations anyway. It's for the greater good of denuclearizing North Korea, of course. Not that China or any other country might need to do much to achieve that. North Korea might be accidentally denuclearizing itself. An estimated 200 North Koreans were killed at a nuclear testing site in September when a tunnel collapsed. That's according to a Japanese news broadcaster with North Korean sources. It's still unconfirmed, but experts say it's possible the most recent nuclear test weakened the ground around the site. In fact, according to this Washington Post article, after so many nuclear tests, the mountain may just be exhausted. Of course it's exhausted. I felt the same way after taking 6 standardized tests in a row in school. They also accomplished practically nothing and just left everyone frustrated. So, is this the end of North Korea's nuclear testing? No, probably not. But Chinese scientists already have warned that further nuclear tests could cause the mountains to collapse and release the radiation from the blast. And that mountain is only 50 miles from the Chinese border, so a radiation leak is not the kind of North Korean export China is looking for. In other news, after the CCP's 19th Party Congress last week, Chinese leader Xi Jinping rose to even greater heights of power. So, what did he decide to do? Why, make a trip to his arch-rival Jiang Zemin's power base, Shanghai. There's something called being a sore winner, Xi. Shanghai is a big city, and yet it was turned into a ghost town for Xi's trip. The streets were practically empty, unless you count all the police. Visiting Shanghai is symbolic for Xi Jinping. Just being able to visit and dominate the city like this shows he's killing it. And by it, I mean the careers of all who oppose him. Here he is with his crew visiting the site of the first Party Congress. I assume they're doing the universal gesture for, I just won. Trump called Xi Jinping last week to congratulate him and teach him about the raised fist thing. Speaking of Trump, Over in Hong Kong, imprisoned student activist and friend of the show Joshua Wong is out on bail, and he's warning the world, trade trumps human rights. In an interview with the Associated Press, Joshua Wong said business interests override human rights. It unfortunately seems to be a common trend in the world. Well, trade may trump rights, but you know what? Trump trumps trade. President Donald Trump will be making his first state visit to China next week. Trade will be a major topic of discussion, especially as the White House begins a probe into China's unfair trade practices, including stealing U.S. intellectual property. And finally, the Chinese regime is pushing somehow even more internet censorship. Apparently, people aren't paying enough attention to heavily censored state-run media, turning to the internet instead. And who knows where that information is coming from? On the internet, any random guy can just produce some videos that slander the Chinese regime. Now, new Chinese regulations will force news and information platforms to conduct regular assessments to prevent the spread of illegal information. What counts as illegal information? Don't worry, it's left intentionally vague. Speaking of Chinese censorship, it may even be extending to America. Facebook has removed the account of Chinese billionaire dissident Guo Wengui. Facebook said October 1st it had taken down a page associated with Guo and stopped him from posting to his own account. It comes after Guo posted negative things about China's anti-corruption czar and Eeyore impersonator Wang Xishan. Now, I'm no particular fan of Guo Wengui, but having Facebook arbitrarily remove his page after receiving a report from a representative of the Chinese government about that account is maybe not a good sign of things to come here in America. I wonder if it had anything to do with Facebook trying to get into China. On a totally unrelated note, here's Facebook's Mark Zuckerberg at a meeting on Monday with Xi Jinping. He even put on adult clothes. So what do you think? And is the China Uncensored Facebook page at risk? I hope not, because I post cool content there that you don't see here on the YouTube channel. Thanks for watching. Once again, I'm your host, Chris Chappell. See you next time. I hope you've been watching these videos at the end of my YouTube episodes. Otherwise, you won't know about ChinaUncensored.tv. It's our very own website. And every Friday, we upload full half-hour episodes of the show for free. Check it out now.